Check, test, 1, 2. Okay, I think we got the audio sorted here. Can you hear me now? It's like a bad Verizon commercial, right? Hello, everybody. Good evening. Hope you're doing well. I knocked my camera around a little bit while I was struggling to get the microphone set. So I hope everybody had a great week. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Judy. So yeah, let's welcome everybody. Tom Downey is in the chat room tonight, as is Tim Myers. Vincent, RV Life. That happens to be Bruce, so welcome. Judy Kimbrough's in from Alabama, and we love having you here, Judy. So yeah, I think we'll just usually kick around for a second, kind of let a few more people get connected. I guess I'll catch you up a little bit. I don't know if we'll see Richard tonight or not, but he's on his way east. I did get a voice message from him today, and it sounds like everything's going well. So, yeah, he got out of here, and I took him out, and I'll tell you what, his 22-year-old daughter came out to spend some quality time with her dad, and they're driving across the country. But she got behind the wheel of Rusty, the 2004 Newmar Dutch Star, 40-foot, with the Jeep, and drove down the interstate like it was nothing. She did an amazing job. I was super impressed, and she was nervous as hell. But she just did an amazing job, so I'm glad that it worked out for us. And she got to put a little time behind the wheel, as did Rick. He goes by Rick. To me, Richard, and I mean, if you're not Dick, it's Rich. But okay, Rick, I'm cool. You'll get used to it by now. You better be, because I've been calling you that for 3 weeks. Anyway, so yeah, we got him on the road. I wasn't really happy with where we ended up, but he had to get going, and we just basically ran out of time. The weather bit us quite a bit. But we got him legal, and he was, he's rolling down the road. So, yeah, I think he is in good shape. Hopefully we'll hear from him in this near future, maybe not tonight. I bet you they're tired. I know how the first couple of days of my driving the RV wore me out. There's just so much to pay attention to. But we stopped to get fuel, and I thought of some stuff that I thought maybe I'd share tonight. I see this question come up every once in a while, and it's especially pertinent to Class A's. Is it okay to fuel at the truck islands? And I say yes, but be courteous. If you're not sure you know how the fuel islands work at the truck stops, I'll just give you a quick rundown. You'll pull in there and you'll get your fuel, and as you look ahead of you, you'll probably see other trucks that have pulled up. And there's usually a line or something painted on the road in front of the fuel island where you pull up and stop and then go in and take care of your business. That's courteous, and that's really what the truckers are going to want. If you're going to get into that truck fuel island and dilly-dally, you're not going to, excuse me, you're not going to be making friends. So get in there, get your fuel, pull forward, go take care of your business. The other thing that came up and that I had forgotten about until Rich ran his credit card and we put $150 worth of diesel in the RV, and then of course it shut off. Well, a lot of these places will have a limit on how much fuel you can pump. So what I recommend is that pull up on the pump, walk inside real quick, get them to pre-authorize your pump for some amount. You'll get a sense for how much you need, like in a 150-gallon fuel tank, if you're down to a half, you're going to need 75 gallons. And at $5 a gallon, that's a lot of money. What is that? $525, something like that? More than that. Well, anyway, go in and you say, I want to pre-authorize for this amount of money. They'll pre-authorize the pump, and boom, you're back out there and you're running. So that's just a couple of tips that came to mind as we were fueling the other night before they left yesterday. No, what is today? Tuesday? I don't even know. I'm so out of my dates are completely collywonkus. Let's see, a little chat going on between Vincent and Tim. And then we also see that KX Racer's in. Hey, dude. Man, you got a really nice piece of property. KX Racer 704 is rebuilding the truck camper, and he got the outside trim on, the corner trims on this past video. And yeah, it's looking really good. I can't wait to see you get her painted. I think it's going to turn out great. Let's see. Oh, and Roundtown Scouter came in. Good evening from Columbus. He's home from New Mexico for the winter. Or summer, I guess it's now. Ian Fox is in. Hi, Ian. You know, if you were on last week and the stream just dropped, and I don't know what happened. I guess my internet went out because I couldn't get back on for 30 minutes. I was able to jump back on my phone, but I wasn't able to reconnect to the stream from my phone, blah, blah, blah. So I was able to drop a few comments. But we were talking about SOK batteries, and if Eric Myers is in tonight, if he comes back, we'll pick that up and finish that discussion about SOK batteries. They're Korean made, and they look like fine batteries. I don't have any first-hand experience, but they look like good batteries. So if Eric comes back in tonight, we'll catch up with him on those batteries. Bruce from Vincent RV, remember, had a problem with a seal. And so he sent me this video a couple weeks ago, and I'll share that with you here. So, did you notice how that seal flipped out as the slide was coming to its final position? Go on here just a minute. Okay, so what I was going to try to do is, it doesn't look like a... Smooth as silk. The seal didn't pop up. Everything looked perfect, and actually the seal looked really good. You'll remember that and maybe you don't remember, maybe you weren't here last week, but the way I like to treat seals is with silicone spray only. Don't use WD-40 or any of those other dry lubes. Pure silicone is the best. Liquid wrench makes a great silicone, as does CRC. So depending upon where you're getting it from, you can generally find those two. Harbor Freight has the liquid wrench, and the CRC is available from my Amazon store. There's a link in the description to this video if you'd like to support the channel. Or at most parts stores, you'll find the CRC sprays, and CRC silicone is extremely good as well. And so I recommend either one of those two for treating your seals. And you can see the end result there was perfect. The seal worked amazingly well. It didn't flip up when it finished coming out, and it actually quieted down quite a bit. So good job, and thanks for sharing, Vincent, Bruce. Appreciate that feedback. It's always great to have good feedback. Tim Myers, they're not near the coast. Okay, so Tim and Vincent are having a side chat about Vincent visiting Richmond, where Vincent is this summer. And I've been in Richmond in the summer, and it is hot and muggy. Frank Avery. Hi, Frank. Great to see you here. He's in from Kansas. What do I think about the mini split in the Class A motorhome? Seen several installs. I'm going to be doing the roof next year and thinking of going this route. Good, bad? Well, I think the mini splits are probably pretty good units. I've seen them installed in buses mostly, in schoolie conversions. I have not seen a mini split on a Class A RV. Now, that doesn't mean they don't exist, but my takeaway on that is um, you're going to lose, well, I don't know, this might all be aesthetic, but I prefer the look of the fairing and the AC on the roof of the Class A. Um, a mini split you're going to have to mount on the back because I'm almost positive that the compressor itself, now don't quote me on this, there may be some made that don't, but they have to be mounted up and down. I wish Randy Waller was on, and if Randy sneaks in here, we'll ask him. But the compressor on a mini split, I believe, has to be installed vertically because that way the oil and everything inside of that compressor and the air conditioning system, it gets back to the right spot where it needs to go. And I don't know if you can mount those horizontally. Now, I may be wrong. But that being said, I've seen it done. I'm not sure about the advantages or disadvantages. I've never really evaluated that, so I don't know that I could talk to that too much. But from a purely aesthetic standpoint, my eye likes the look of the AC unit on the roof with the fairing, and I think that's probably a more compact system. Um, so whether or not you do the roof, I'm not sure. Maybe Frank, maybe I should say you've investigated this, and have you found that you can run the mini split compressor like sitting on a roof and not standing up vertically? I'd be curious. I think that would be the one thing that might be the big problem. Ian Fox asks, is the $86 surge protector on Amazon okay starting out, or do we need the 400 plus? No, no. Anything is better than nothing. The $86 one is probably going to be a little less surge suppression capabilities in it, but I would not let that stop me. No, you don't need a $400 surge suppressor at all. I'm trying to remember, Ian, are you in a class? I think you're in a class C, aren't you? How many amps is your hookup? But I think the Southwire had a fairly inexpensive one that was looked like a pretty good unit. And I looked at a couple others that were less expensive. And yeah, I think any amount of surge protection is better than none at all. And yeah, the $86 one, provided it has a reasonable amount of protection, somewhere around 3,000 joules, somewhere in that range of protection, you should be okay with that. Um, when we think about surge protection, everybody thinks about lightning. And yeah, getting struck by lightning is fairly rare. But there is so much energy in a lightning strike that even the best of surge protectors, if you're close enough to that lightning strike, are going to get fried and allow excess current through the system. So no surge protector is going to completely protect you in your RV that's reasonably affordable. But what you're protecting against are those little minor surges that come from air conditioners turning on and off, fridges turning on and off. Every time that happens, there's a little surge that goes into the electrical system. And a surge protector like what you're talking about would be more than adequate to deal with that. And so, yeah, it would give you fine protection. And then when you have more expensive audio equipment or more expensive equipment that you want to protect, then invest in a little better surge protector. That's the way I think I would do that. All right, catching up on the comments. Getting a good check out on the basement air repair, I think. Yeah, Tim. Tim Myers. Yes, mini split outdoor unit is up and down like a box fan. That's what I thought. You also have to run a refrigerant line between the indoor and outdoor units. Correct, yeah. Um, and then Frank chimes in, yes, vertical mounting, but am installing them in a basement and will have to put vents in the door and floor for airflow. Okay. And then you would be able to, I presume, are you thinking of just sealing up the roof penetrations for the AC and just covering them over? I'm just curious. for my own thought. And is your RV currently, does it have ducts? 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 That the air flows through? I know in the Newmar Class A's and a lot of Class E's, they'll have ducts for the AC. So there'll actually be small air ducts up in the ceiling to move the air around from the AC unit. And so is the air handler going to be on the roof? And then the compressor down in the basement? It sounds like it'd probably work just fine. I guess I might be concerned a little bit about heat. But because, in the heat of the summer, you'd have to move a lot of air to be able to cool that unit in the basement, I would think. But like I say, I don't know. I would definitely be doing some research on it, though, before I went whole hog on it. But yeah, are you going to put the air handlers on the roof and or maybe even inside? I mean, they can be wall mounted. I don't know why you couldn't do a wall mount in an RV. Other than, like if you had a slide, that would make it pretty impossible to do a wall mount, particularly with refrigerant lines and those sorts of things. But yeah, I'd be interested to know a little bit more about it, and I might take a few moments here this week and maybe do a little research on it because it does sound intriguing. Oh, okay, so Tim Myers says power runs to the outdoor unit, then the outdoor unit powers the indoor unit. So you'd have refrigerant lines and power lines running to and from the air handler, wherever that might be. Okay, Vincent and Tim are still conversing, and that's just fine. I usually don't share that with the whole audience. You can read the chat yourself. And if you have a question, feel free to drop it into the chat line, and I'm happy to try to answer it for you. If I can't answer it, and or some of the other participants, the guys that have been doing this a while, and Tim and Round Town and Tom and those guys, if they can't answer it with me, then I'll research it and get back to you. If you'd like to ask your question in advance, that's always welcomed. You can email at trbolin@gmail.com. And I'm happy to do that. It's great to get the before and after shots like Vincent did, and especially so I can share those with you and show you I'm not completely full of fertilizer, only partly. Okay, so Frank has come back to us, says, yes, the air handlers are wall mount. Roof will be sheathed and covered. The holes for the old AC, and Tim is correct. Yeah, okay, cool. So, yeah, it sounds like an interesting project. Again, it sounds like you pretty much got her covered. The only thing I would be concerned about would be heat in the basement where you don't have that unit out in the open air. You might have to do some kind of additional air supply. Cooling air for the cooling or for the unit, for the compressor. So, KX Racer asks, am I still planning on having the live every Tuesday? Yes, for the foreseeable future. I had taken some time off because I knew I was going to be busy working on the RV, and then also I'd planned on a class, and that class got canceled. That class was this month on Tuesdays. And that class got canceled, so that's why I'm back early. I thought I would be gone most of this month as well, doing other stuff. And then come summer, once I get out, get my truck camper ready to run again, I'll be out and about, and I'll try to do some lives from various campgrounds depending upon connectivity. So thanks, Guy. Appreciate it. And yeah. If you haven't already, run over and check out KX Racer's channel. He's a fun guy, and he's doing some good work on his truck camper. Vincent says, what do I think about tapping into a 12-volt light near that vent opening in the cab over area when installing a MaxxAir fan? I think that's possible. The only question I would have is, there's a light, and what kind of bulb is in it? Because one way you could help what I'm thinking about is the total number of amps that would be going on that wire, not only to from the battery to the light, but then from the light over to the fan. So if that's an incandescent light, then I would probably change it out for LED. That's going to save you some amps, quite a few probably. And then, oh, it's an LED, so perfect. And then, have you had that light out and looked at what size gauge wire it is? It's probably 12 gauge. If it's 12 gauge, I would say you're probably fine to add the fan to it. I don't think those max airs pull a lot of juice. But yeah, I think if it's 12 gauge, you're probably good. If it's 14 gauge wire, I'd want to look at the math on it real quick just to make sure you weren't going to pull too many amps. But I think 12 gauge you'd probably be fine. Vince says he hasn't opened the light yet. Yeah, when you get the opportunity, you might check and see what gauge wire is feeding that light. And if it's a smaller gauge, like I say, 14, because, you know, to save money, that's an older coach, though, so they might, well, I don't know, you know, I'm speculating here, so I'm not going to speculate anymore. If it's 12 gauge or bigger, you're probably just fine. If it's less than 12 gauge, you might consider looking for a different source for the power. Round Town Scouter says, what about placing the basement unit on a side that when stationary could be slid out to get more air cooling? Yeah, that would be a great idea, Round Town. Yeah, I mean, you know, that way you're going to get that air. The flexible lines might get pricey though, because you're going to have you're going to have flexible lines, and I don't know. Maybe NASA makes them, but I don't know if, and maybe somebody else out there does, but if you can even get flexible copper or whatever lines they're using, you know, most of the time they're copper, flexible lines for the compressor so that it could slide on a tray, because somehow the line would have to flex. I just don't see any way around that. You know, flexing for the power, that's nothing. You know, that's just a piece of liquid tight conduit. You know, that's flexible stuff and used all the time for that kind of an application. So, yeah, that's a thought. Or perhaps, you know, be able to open the bay door that it's in and allow more air through. Because I'm just thinking, you know, those coolers, you know, when they're really running, they're pulling a lot of air through. And you'd have to have one heck of a big vent and one heck of a big exhaust opening for that, to, you know, for the air to move through. So, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting concept. It's an interesting idea, and I'm sure people have done it. And I know people with AC stuff in the basement. I mean, you know, some of the Wander Lodges that were built a long time ago had AC in the basement. I was trying to help a fellow, okay, this is last fall, who needed a control board for his AC that was in the basement, and the make and model of his rig and the AC unit escapes me. But he ended up going to Dinosaur Boards, who you've heard me talk about here if you're a regular viewer, and if not, and you have an old piece of equipment, old water heater, old fridge, and you can't get the power boards or any of the boards for it, check out Dinosaur Boards online, and they may have the board for you. And if they don't, there's several companies out there that will rebuild a board for you. It's rather expensive, but it may be less expensive than a $2,000 fridge. You know, if you had to spend $300 or $400 to get your power board rebuilt, or that amount of money on a power, you know, on a new fridge. Kevin Coop, hi Kevin. Max Air fan recommends 5 amp fuse for its fan, so it probably uses 2.5 to 3 amps. Yeah, okay, good. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate the number. In that particular case, I'm still sticking with my 12 gauge wire. 14 would maybe work. But yeah, and then as a good point from Kevin is you may need to change the uh, the fuse on that light. And the other thing that you're going to want to, this just came to me and I was thinking about this. The other thing you're going to want to do, Vincent, is locate the fuse for that light and make sure there are not any other lights on that line. So what we've got to do is we have to understand what the total amount of power is on that line of all the fixtures. And so in some cases, sometimes, they'll daisy chain from fixture to fixture. And that can add, that can be, there could be additional power down the line on that we're not accounting for. So I'm going to stick with my conservative estimate and say 12 gauge wire, you'll be fine. If it's smaller than 12 gauge, then you're really going to want to think about and try to identify how many lights are on that circuit and that sort of stuff. So I hope that helps. And of course, you have my email if you need it. And you have questions offline. And of course, I'm always happy to come back and update our friends here online. Thanks for the numbers, Kevin. Judy Kimbrough, they normally need about 18 inches from walls for airflow. Interesting. Well, I'm wondering about the cassettes, the smaller cassettes that sit up on the wall. I used a lot of those in server rooms and basically, in small closets, I should say. I wouldn't call them server rooms. That's an abomination because I built server rooms, but I had a lot of offices that we'd have a server closet, that was sort of a oversized coat closet, 8x8, something like that. And I did a lot of split minis, mini splits in those. And in fact, in one of them, I did a wall-mounted 5,000 BTU AC unit, which was a big mistake. It's one of those things you learn after you do it. You don't do. Anyway, so yeah, they, let's see, Tom Downey says, we have a box fan that we plug in, open the basement and unit. Okay. I think your voice recognition got a little bit carried away here. Yeah, KX Racer says he ran 14 gauge for the Max Air fan without issues when I tested the electrical. Yeah, that would be no problem, KX Racer, if it was only the Max Air fan. The other thing, too, is that you got to think about wire length. I think we've chatted about this before. I'm cutting my hand off here. Let me just get a little bit more room here so you can see me when I do my hands. I'll slide over. But you've got to think about wire length, too. So in your truck camper, the wire length probably was 10 or 12 feet, or maybe 15. I don't know how you ran the wires down. I mean, I remember the episode and watching a little bit about that, but I don't remember all the details. But yeah, you have to think about the length. And so what I'm thinking about is what Vincent's talking about is adding it to a light that's nearby. What he has going on, I'm sorry, I should probably catch everybody up. As he sent me a question earlier tonight, just before the stream started, about installing power vents where there are now passive vents. And so what we were talking about is how to get electrical over to that new power vent. It sounds like there's a light nearby, and that would make it super easy. But we don't know how many other things are on that line downstream, adding to the number of amps. And then I saw Gary, and that's a good one. And Kevin said it too. Gary, I'll get back to your other comment in a minute. That should do an amp check on the circuit first. There are tables for voltage drops across the fuse to calculate amps. Yeah, you don't really even need to do that. You can get a really inexpensive DC clamp-on amp meter for about $25 now. If you're not using it professionally, that'll be close enough. And actually, you can just do it with a VOM, with a voltmeter. And Gary says I should show people how to check amps with a meter, and I'll do that. It's really quite simple. And in low amps situations like this, not dangerous at all. I don't have a meter here or I could probably do it tonight, but what I will do is I will set up a little demonstration for next week if you'd like to learn that. How to do it with just a regular voltmeter. I also have a clamp on, and so we'll do that. I've got 12 volt sources here, and we'll set up some lights and stuff, and we'll do that real quick. I think I can rig that up for next week, and that should be interesting. Good suggestion, Gare. And he says it's also amazing how many people don't know how to solder. Well, yeah, the whole, you know, I don't want to get political here, but this whole throwaway culture and economy that we live in, I think is partly why, a lot of people have not ever learned how to solder. First off, it's not that difficult. When I was doing Richard's Jeep, the 4-down, I did, a trailer connector on the front bumper well, it's actually on the front tow bar, on the tow bar base plate. So he could connect, 7-pin from the Jeep to the RV because we ran a charge wire back, and I wanted an extra pin for that. So with that being said, I soldered those connections right at the socket because I had the connections not only from the Invisibrake, the braking system, and also from the trailer lights to set up the Jeep to have trailer lights. And so I joined those right there. You'll see that in a video coming up here in probably about 2 to 3 weeks on my Sunday night releases when I release my how-to videos. I'm going to take just a quick moment here to throw my obligatory commercial out. If you're not subscribed, please do subscribe and ring the notification bell. Lots of good videos still to come. Also, that thumbs up is super important. So if you haven't given me a thumbs up and you like the content, please slip out right now and give me that thumbs up. That helps YouTube. It gets their attention and helps other people get to see the content. And that's always just super helpful. I really enjoy interacting with folks. And yeah, so, your questions are always welcome. A visit to my website is also very useful. Every little bit of traffic helps over there. Actually, my website is growing a little bit right now, so I'm really happy with that. I've been awfully busy the last 6 weeks or so I haven't been able to do a lot of posting over on the website. But oftentimes, if you're watching my website, you might see content that ultimately will become an RV how-to video. Like right now, I have 2 pieces of content up there that I totally intend to make videos on, probably this fall. And one of them is alternator charging your RV's house batteries. And, I'm totally going to do a how-to video on that. I'll get it out. So anyway, visit my website. It's always great, and I thank you. If you're inclined and you'd like to support the channel in other ways, there's a link in the description for this video to my Amazon store. And of course, as an affiliate, I get a small commission, but you pay the same price. And trust me, every little bit helps. Cameras and all this gear and the connectivity and everything, it costs a fair amount of money. And last year was the first year in 4 years that I made any money doing YouTube. And my grand total for the year was $73. But it's a start. Oh, let's see here. Vincent says, thanks to Kevin. Yeah, good job, Kevin. You brought some real value to the conversation tonight. Thank you. Tim Myers said, we used a lot of ductless splits in server rooms. Yeah, well, Tim, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We had a server room that we inherited when we acquired another company, and it had some horrible hot spots in it. And I managed to supplement and get through the cycle of having to run this, junky server room. I hate to be so crude, but okay, that's what they were. Until we could get it moved or upgraded or fixed appropriately. But yeah, mini splits, ductless, all the same. Okay, Tom Downey says his Max Air fans all take 5 amp fuses. Yeah, so 5 amps isn't a whole lot, but again, like KX Racer, he's on a dedicated wire, and so he's not stealing power from somewhere else, and we just don't know what's downstream from in Vincent's case. But yeah, we'll find out. I'll show you guys how to measure that next week for sure. It's pretty simple. And Kevin says Amazon has clamp-ons for $23. Yeah, I know you can get the clamp-ons, but if you're gonna go shop for a clamp-on, use my Amazon link. No, I'm just teasing. If you're gonna go shop for a clamp-on, make sure it does DC. Okay, because not all clamp-ons are equal. Some do AC, some do DC, some do both, and so make sure that it does DC, because you're measuring DC power in an RV. I think the rest is pretty self-explanatory. Tim Meyer says the U.S. Air Force turned him into a pro at soldering. He used to teach classes on that and galvanic corrosion. Yeah, galvanic corrosion is an interesting subject for sure. Oh, and then Gary D says he worked at Western Electric building telephones. So we got some techno geeks here. That's awesome. Because I'm kind of techno geeky. Kevin says he bought his does DC for $23. Perfect. Yep. Yeah, that's all you need. They're not real expensive, and usually they're voltometers as well, right? So they're VOM meters, and so they're really very useful. Yeah. So if you have a question, throw it over in the comments. Always happy to answer your questions. We're coming up on what, 7:40. Oh, and Kevin, he said he did electrical design for buildings for 35 years. So we got another engineer in here, another engineer. Yeah, Kevin, I worked for an electrical engineering company. We did power lines, substations, high voltage DC, low voltage, everything. Substations, they did generation, all that electrical design. I supported engineers who did all that for years, and a lot of it rubbed off on me. And I've always kind of been interested in that whole concept, the whole electrical realm of things. I mean, I wired my own house in Shoshone when I built it. I've been fixing the wiring here. So, yeah, that's awesome. Kevin says he worked for contractors. Yeah, good. Yep, interesting stuff. Oh, and Tim did the same thing, and he did HVAC and plumbing. So, yeah, HVAC is kind of okay. Plumbing, I'm not big on. I've got some plumbing stories, but fortunately, the plumbing in your RV is pretty straightforward. I mean, there's nothing rocket science about it. You know, all the drain lines are PVC or ABS, and then all the water supply lines oftentimes are PEX now. What was the pipe before PEX that they used a lot of? I want to say polyurethane, but that might not be it. A Kex Wrestler asks a question specific to my truck camper. He says, am I redoing a lot of the electrical in my truck camper? Not a lot. All of the existing wiring is fine. I am upgrading all my lights to LED though. That's all sponsored, so you'll be seeing videos on the lights I'm going to be using, but they're all LED, and they're from companies. This is when things come full circle. I really like it. I upgraded a lot of the lighting in my RV, my Class A Rusty. And I bought I bought all the lights on Amazon except for the old fluorescents that I physically rebuilt with LED light strips. There's a video on my channel if you're interested in that. Just look for just type in LED in the search window on my channel, and you'll find lots of LED content because I did 3 different light projects with LEDs for my RV. I'm not worried about any of my wiring being undersized. What I am redoing is I am adding 200 amp hours of Battleborn lithiums. I'm going to be adding a 2,000 watt inverter charger. I'm going to be adding a DC to DC charge controller. I'll be adding solar. I have 500 watts of solar. And then also I'll be adding a solar charge controller capable of 60 amps, 60 amps-ish, somewhere in that range. So that's all new. What's there now is a 450 watt inverter only, no charger. And and well, no, excuse me, I lied. It is an inverter charger, but it's only 450 watts, so it's really quite small. Essentially, what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to run the air conditioning. Excuse me, check that, not AC. I lied. I want to be able to run my microwave, flat screen TV, that sort of stuff on my batteries. And I haven't mentioned this, and I do have one other thing I'm going to share with you here in just a bit. But when I did do some additional work on the truck camper early this spring. I got one good day where I went out and reframed. I needed to make the battery compartment just ever so slightly larger. And I needed to get that done so I could order a door, because I have to have a door made for it. The old door won't be big enough. Anyway, the long story there is that I was doing the work on that side, and the fridge was there, and I happened to have my compressor out. I was doing something else, so I decided I would blow the fridge out, just to get the dust out. And I removed this little cup off of the evaporator plate that sits below the boiler. And I found the worst possible thing I could find, and that was yellow crystals. And when you find yellow crystals in the evaporator pan of a RV fridge, that's a death sign. So although the fridge worked when I first plugged it in and checked it, I'll bet you dollars to donuts that when it gets warm, it will not get cold. It has leaked somewhere. And so I'm looking at possibly replacing the fridge. But honestly, what I'm looking at is using potentially those 12-volt coolers. I've looked at a couple that have freezer units in it, or that you can set to be freezers. And so I might go, at least to start, rather than spend $1,200 on a new fridge, to stay kind of within a reasonable budget. I have the one unit that I just did the review on that seems like it's pretty solid, but if you watch the review, you'll remember I said that I haven't really put it through its paces, so I couldn't endorse or not endorse it at that point. I will be soon, though. And that one goes clear to zero, so I was thinking, well, maybe I use that one for the freezer and get another one that I use for like refrigeration, like 45, or maybe a bigger cooler that I could use for a fridge. Anyway, I'm looking at some options that way as far as what to do with my fridge. I forgot this. I was going to mention this. As you all know, Rich picked up Rusty. Basically, he left my possession on Monday. And so I was feeling a little melancholy, and I went back and drug out all the old paperwork. And here's what I figured out. Oh, and let's see. Oh, yeah, those notes are right here. Okay. I owned Rusty for 3,686 days, or 10 years, 1 month, and 4 days. Or if you prefer, 121 months and 4 days. Also, if you'd like, that's 88,464 hours, or it was 5,307,840 minutes, or 318,470,400 seconds. All right, now here's some interesting stuff. 73,648 miles is the number of miles I drove. Okay, I used 5,733, it looks like my writing is a little crunchy, gallons of diesel at an average of around $3.02. I think that totaled up to around $15,700 in diesel, and that's over the 10 years of my owning it. Another 661 gallons of propane over the 10 years. And then I didn't go back and do all the maintenance and everything else. But I was just doing some numbers because I'm doing a retrospect video to look back at Rusty and all the places we went and the good times we had, because they were many. And that'll be coming here in the very near future. Let's see. Back to the comments here. I saw a few plop in here. Tom Downey says he learned to solder welding in AAP school in 59. I solder stuff all the time. I have a very nice, well, I have a soldering station with an SMD tool, the whole 9 yards. So I've done some. I do a lot of soldering when I need to. Oh, Tim Meyer says blank runs downhill if the ID is bigger than the OD, it leaks. Yeah. Yeah, Kevin Coop, that's a good point. He says, please stay away from higher number Kelvin LEDs, not good for your eyes. Well, if you go watch my LED videos, you'll note that I used all 3000 Kelvin lights. I like that warm yellow light. I think it really looks good. And it looked really good in the Newmar, my Dutch Star, with the nice blonde oak wood and the light walls that I put in. It looked really, really good. I really liked it a lot. Tim Meyer says he sucked at welding, pretty good at brazing. And I'm just the opposite. I'm pretty good. I can MIG weld, do MIG and stick. I've never done TIG because I've never had a machine to experiment with it and learn how to do it. But yeah, I can MIG weld and TIG weld, or not TIG weld, but stick weld. Well, I learned to stick weld many years ago, working for my uncle and stuff like that at the farm. And if you didn't know how to weld at the farm, you didn't have a job. I mean, that was just the way it was. They don't do a lot of welding nowadays, I don't think. Gary D says, I love the Battleborn batteries. He has 4 on his trailer plus 400 watts of solar. Yeah, those Battleborns, I really like them. I mean, they are rock solid. There's nothing wrong with the other ones, but I tend to be conservative when it comes to making recommendations, and I don't like to recommend things that I haven't tested thoroughly. And I will say that after 3 years, or 2 years, I had tested those Battleborns pretty thoroughly. And man, I was very happy with them. Gary says he's playing with the IceCo 52 12-volt cooler. I guess that's a 52 quart. Interesting, Gary. Well, I'd love to know what you think about it. I did that Set Power, the TC35, which was a 37 quart. And it looks like a good unit, but like I said in the video, I hadn't had a chance to test it under warm weather, right? I mean, the time I was testing it, the warmest the garage got was probably 55 degrees. And so, that's what, 12, 15 degrees over what you would normally set your fridge at. 42 to 38 are pretty common numbers for the fridge anyway. So I want to get some heat on it. I could have tested it today. It was nice and warm today. But I've got other projects to take care of right now. But I'm going to test that one in the heat and just see how well it does. If it can sit out in the sun at 80 degrees and still maintain a reasonable temperature, then I'll throw my seal of approval on it. The only reason I put the video out is because I was obligated to do it by a certain date, which I tend to hate to do, and is a lot of the reason why I don't do a lot of product reviews. But I'll have a few coming up that I think are pretty good for folks. Tom Downey says he loves his TIG stick Lincoln 250 amp, but he can't see very well anymore. Yeah, and Gary D says, living in Arizona, it struggles. We have 100 now. Okay, well, that's kind of what I wanted to know, Gare. Is these reviews, I think they're fine, but I like to test things, and I'm going to test this unit, and then I'll do another video on it. Trust me. You'll probably see something come here in another 6 weeks when we get to the really warm temperatures this summer. I'll put that thing to the test, and we'll see how it does. In the meantime, I have been looking for replacement cooling units. Okay, we used to call them the Amish kits, and there's some out there, but they're kind of expensive. It's ironic, I put a cooling kit on my old Nevercold, Norcold. We affectionately called them Nevercolds. And it lasted 4 years, so I was kind of disappointed in it for the price of it. I believe it was around $700. And I found a replacement cooling unit for this one. And by the time I get it shipped out here to Idaho, it was going to be 700. So I don't know if I want to spend 700 and take a chance on a rebuilt cooling unit, or just cough up another 500 and get a replacement fridge. But RV refrigerators are not, they don't use Freon. They're not like a regular fridge or a AC unit, so you can't just add more Freon. And a lot of them have hydrogen and some other chemicals inside there that help them work well. So, all right. Any other questions or comments you'd like to make tonight, please throw them over in the chat. If you haven't chatted with us and let us know where you're watching from tonight, that'd be great too if you wanted to do that. Just another friendly reminder that thumbs up is super important, so if you have a moment, run over there and hit the thumbs up. And yeah, we had a couple questions come in right at the end. I guess it was, might not have been last week. Maybe it was. Yeah, it was right at the end. I was just finishing up talking about Eric's question about the SOK batteries. And we had a person pop in and ask some questions about boondocking, dry camping. And I was kind of watching and waiting to see if they would show back up tonight. So if that is something that folks would be interested in, I boondocked, 114 days in 2019. Yeah, well, and how I remember that is right here. And this is Rusty's diary, and it goes all the way back to the day I bought him. And important information I would write in the cover here, like the Good Sam Road Site assistance numbers, the VIN of the truck, my Flying J information, that kind of stuff. But yeah, every leg of every trip would have some kind of a record associated with it. Here's a great example of a good page. Let's see if I can get over here. So that first one was fuel, Flying J, Oklahoma City. Mileage was 125,202. It was $266.38, and I bought 104.92 gallons. Anyway, arrived Green Forest, dump fee Berryville, round trip, blah, blah, blah. Driver's windshield replaced on 5/9/17. Arrived at St. Charles, Missouri, so on and so forth. I think you get the idea. And I keep a diary like that. I've kept a diary like that on all my vehicles. And it's kind of fun. I can go back now and look back at 10 years. And I could tell you where I was in the RV on a particular day, if I was in the RV. So that's kind of fun. Thank you, Kevin. It's so nice to have you drop by and share your experience with us as well. That's why we're here. Really appreciate that. We get some really smart guys in here, and I don't have all the answers. I'm the first one to admit that. But if I don't have them, oftentimes some of the other folks in the chat might have them, and when we strike out there, then I'll do the research, and if you'll come back the next week, we'll chat about it. Tom Downey says Barb keeps track in our big books, Matt, and I have right up there. I won't get up and get them, but I have my atlases, and I've also marked my routes on the atlases with dates and all that stuff on my atlas, because I have, probably three. I probably have 3 different years of atlases in there that I kept track of all my travels in. It's fun. It's something to look back on, I guess, when I can't drive anymore. So any other questions or comments you want to make? Coming right up on 8 o'clock, which is, I usually try to keep these down to an hour. And if we don't have any other comments, then I guess we'll wrap this one up here in just a couple minutes. I'll take another sip of tea and give you a chance to get your fingers going. Tom says she draws a line and tracks fuel. Cool. Well, on the state atlas, I think, well, here, hang on. I think I can reach it without. Sorry about that. Okay. I'd have to say that this has been a good one. This was, I mean, it's well used, as you can see. Arizona, of course, I spent a lot of time in Arizona. I have the benchmark maps. This is a benchmark, and I have one for Utah, Idaho, Nevada, California. What I like about these is that they have very great detailed maps. Let me find, like a pretty good one. Well, here's the area around Kingman, right? So I think that's a good map. And guess what? You don't need internet for it to work, and that is a big deal. If you get out in the sticks and you got no internet, you'll be happy you got a paper map, I'll guarantee you. Then, as far as travel atlases go, I just grabbed a couple here. I've got the Rand McNally's. So, like, here's a pretty good example of, well, let's go to this one because I know it's got some stuff in it. Let's go find, here we go. So, like, here's a map of Michigan, and this was my route. I went to the a music festival up here. Our route across Michigan was down here, and then we came back up and did something else. So this is a route that I'd done through Michigan a couple summers ago. So yeah, and then in some cases I'll even I keep like here's a good example. I also have a printed out calendar that I'll like do some kind of scheduling type things on, and so like and make notes like it was 635 miles to Roxbury and kind of see that, and oh, let's see here, like we stayed at the White Acres RV in Bardstown, Kentucky on that night. You can kind of get a sense for it there. I don't know, can you read that okay? So I have these for the last 10 years or so as well. And where I get these maps, or where I get these calendars, is at dateandtime.com. Not sponsored, but they have a little calendar generation feature. You can set up a calendar. On the calendars I use now, I put all of the moon phases and all that kind of stuff. So I really like the Rand McNally atlases. The thing about them is that they have, a lot of information about the local, about the local area. Here's a good example of, a route that I took through Utah a couple summers ago. The blue line would be the route that I took through Utah going to Colorado. And then that orange line was another route from a different year. Each year was color-coded. So I might have an atlas for 4 or 5 years. And then if it get too much, too many notes on it, then I get rid of it and get a new, well, never get rid of it, but you know what I mean. Hi, Peter B. Winter. So happy to see you here. It's been a long time. I hope you're well and still hanging out in Las Vegas and doing well. Ian Fox says, realistically, in the Tucson summer, how cool can the RV get with 3 ACs running or the 2 with the garage closed off? Yeah, that's a good question. I was there till May 20th in 2020, and I could not keep my coach cool on 30 amps. I moved to a 50 amp spot. Normally I would winter in a 30 amp because I just didn't need all the power, and it was $125 a month cheaper to be in a 30 amp spot. So why not? But with COVID and everything in 2020, I had to end up staying in Tucson actually 2 months longer than normally I would have normally. Normally, I was out of there by mid to late March. And anyway, I ended up spending 2 months. And so, yeah, I had to move to a 50 amp spot. And even with two ACs, uh, the RV was uncomfortably warm. We're talking in the upper 80s. Not completely outrageously cooking hot, but pretty warm. So yeah, that's a good question, Ian. It's tough. Tom Downey, he says he saved all of them since 2009. That's pretty good. It's the real deal. Paper stays put. It sure does. KX Racer says, I also travel with Paper State maps, and I have the Delorme. They're excellent maps too, but the quality of the printing has gone hills since GPSs came out. I was wondering which brand I like best for the state maps. Yeah, the this one here, guy, the benchmark maps. I don't know if they're available in the East, but you can get one of these for the West. There's another company that I have an Idaho map of, and I don't see it up on the bookshelf there. I don't think it's Delorme. But I know Delorme, and yeah, they used to make really good maps. I know where their headquarters are. They're right there in Maine. They have this amazing building right off of I-95 that has a globe. It's a glass globe that's part of their building. So yeah, kind of cool. All right, we're rambling here. Let's go back to the chat, and then we'll get things wrapped up here unless other questions come in or you guys want to chat further. If you want to chat more, just say the word. I'm not doing anything, so... yeah, Arizona's just hot till October. Yeah, I've been back there as early as middle of October. I think it might have been 2018. A friend of mine was very ill, and so I went down to give her a hand in Arizona in early October, and it wasn't too bad. I mean, there were a couple 100-degree days, but I have a whole video I'm working on. In fact, that should be coming out here. Oh, it'll be coming out when the weather gets a little bit warmer on keeping cool in your RV. And I had a whole strategy put together, and so I was able to, keep my RV fairly comfortable until late in the day. But yeah, there'll be a video out on that here in the next. Well, it's kind of almost done. I mean, I could publish it any time, but I thought I'd wait till it got hot. And Ian says, yeah, we'll have 50 amps always. Yep. Tom Downey, he stayed 118 degrees, no two ACs for 3 days on the gen set. Yeah, and on the other side of that, I spent 3 days living on my Jenny in a power outage on the Blue Ridge Parkway when we lost power due to an ice storm. I was there in, I guess might have been. I think this ice storm was in February. I'm sorry if I look distracted. I thought I might have that picture right handy that I could show you. But I will get it and show it next week because I was frozen into my RV. Literally frozen into the RV. Since I was parked static and I was staying there for a long time, I wasn't using my holding tanks. I had a little building that had bathroom, washing facilities, shower, and laundry. It was a, sweet setup. But yeah, we lost power for 3 days, and I ran on the Jenny for 3 days. So totally get it. And that was, running my heat pumps and then or the propane. I did have to have propane delivered shortly after that particular bout of really cold, nasty weather. All right, one last try. Any other questions, comments that you want to throw out there? I will be back next Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. As always, your questions are welcome in advance, trbolin@gmail.com. Or you can leave a comment on any video, and I'm happy to roll off those videos, and we'll chat about anything you want to chat about that's related to RVing. All right. Gary made a quick comment here, and then we'll go and wrap things up. He says, with all the people in Arizona now, APS, that's Arizona Public Services, and SRP, and I don't remember what their name is, have concerns with meeting power needs of the people. Not only that, but because of my interest in Arizona, on my YouTube suggestions, I see Arizona news all the time. And News 12 down there, I think they're in Phoenix, has been running a series now for about 2 or 3 weeks about all the towns that are running out of water because, well, we all see the pictures of Lake Powell and Lake Mead. You know, I mean, there's bodies turning up in Lake Mead, which is not that surprising given its proximity to Las Vegas. But yeah, there's bodies in barrels and all kinds of stuff showing up on the bottom of Lake Mead. Okay, Tim's checking out. Vincent's taking off. I am too. Hey, thanks everybody so much. I really appreciate your support. You're watching the live stream, your questions, your comments, and everything else you do to make this channel work. It's greatly appreciated. And I'm always happy to answer your questions, really at any time. So throw me that email if you're in a pinch, and I'm happy to get back to you. But I think we'll call it good. So thanks everybody for watching. Until next Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, peace. Bye-bye.